Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. We're so pleased that you've joined us today for this webinar on law school admission in the time of the COVID crisis. And it's certainly the case that I wish I didn't have to be talking to you about a COVID crisis. And more than anything, I hope that everyone is safe and well, and that your friends and families and communities are faring as well as possible during this truly unprecedented time in our country and our world. I have a wonderful panel with us today to try and help us steer through this time together, because legal education is indeed all in this together, and the rule of law has never been more important, as we've seen from some of what's flowing from this crisis. And so our goal today is to try and help law school candidates understand all the things that LSAC and our law schools are doing in order to help you navigate through this time. And as the president of the Law School Admission Council, I know there's a lot of uncertainty and there are a lot of updates that you're hoping to have. I'm going to try and provide some of those as we go through here today and talking with our panel. And I want to introduce you to the panel and let you know how we're going to proceed today. So I'll introduce the panel, and then I have a few questions for them, and so we can have some dialogue and some things that I know you'll want to hear about. And then we have an opportunity for you to be sending in Q&A, and some of you have already done that, and we've been able to prepare so that we cover some of those topics. But we really do also want to hear from you and know what you need to know now. And let me, as I introduce the panel, share that the bottom line here is that we will together make sure you get through this well. If you're applying for fall of 20, we're going to be there for you. You're going to be able to take the LSAT, and you're going to be able to keep your enrollment journey going. And if you're applying for a year beyond that, we're going to make sure we're preparing for that too. So bottom line is we got you on this. And let me introduce our panel so that you can hear directly from some of the deans and admission deans working on the front lines during this crisis. So let me welcome, please, Jorge Garcia, the Assistant Dean of Admission, Diversity Initiatives, and Financial Aid at San Diego. I'm very happy to have you with us today, Jorge. Also pleased to welcome Dean Marcelin Burke from the University of Oregon School of Law. Marcelin, thank you for joining us.
Afternoon.
Pleased to welcome Rebecca Scheller, who is the Assistant Dean for Admission and Financial Aid at the University of Wisconsin School of Law. Rebecca, thanks for being with us this morning.
Happy to be here.
And I'm also pleased to welcome Tracy Simmons, Assistant Dean for Admission and Financial Aid at University of Pacific McGeorge School of Law. Tracy, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
And Gary Jenkins, welcome to you. Gary is the Dean at the University of Minnesota School of Law. So very pleased to have you with us, Gary.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Welcome, everyone.
Good. Well, you can see then, viewers, that we have with us, two deans and three people who are working in the admission and financial aid and diversity and equity side of law school work as assistant deans. It's a great panel, and they've been leaders in so many areas for legal education. So I welcome them. And what I'd like to do is begin, panelists, with asking each of you to share some reflections on how do you think that this crisis is affecting the admission process from your standpoint, and what are each of your schools doing to help candidates during this time? And let me ask Dean Burke to begin, and then I'll ask each of you to share your perspectives on that as we get started today.
I guess my answer, Kelly, is really it is and it isn't, in the sense of what we're doing in our admissions process in many ways looks the way that it always has. You know, at this time of year, we've admitted a lot of students. We're still reviewing applications. We're in contact with them on a regular basis. We're still answering emails and phone calls and doing all the things that we normally do. I think the big thing for us is that people can't come and visit us. And a lot of times that really makes the difference, right? To actually see, you know, your facilities, to meet your students, your faculty, and your staff. And that, I think, is really big change that we're experiencing. Some schools have virtual tours online that you can avail yourself of, and also trying to still connect you with students and faculty via Zoom or telephone or email. But I think that's really the big thing that's happening for us right now is just the ability to come and get that, individualized tour and really get a sense of the place.
Very good, Marceline. Thank you. And I note that LSAC has done a webinar for all the admissions professionals out there across the country to provide tips and best practices for providing those opportunities to visit without actually physically visiting. So I sure hope everybody can still connect in that way. Rebecca, let me turn to you for your comment on what you're seeing and how you're responding.
Absolutely. I think Dean Burke kind of hit the nail on the head with this. We certainly have turned to a more virtual experience to welcome our students. And so right before this webinar, we did a financial aid webinar. We are doing a mock class on Monday. Basically, all of the topics that we wanted to cover during our admitted student weekend, we are now replicating in a virtual format. We know, just like Dean Burke said, it really isn't a substitute for actually being in the building and being in our campus and being in our city, but that's kind of what we're doing for now. We also have made sure that our seat deposit is not going to be due until May 1st, and that's something that we are keeping an eye on. We will push it back further if we need to, because this is a big investment for students, and we want them to be a fully informed investor before they commit to coming to Wisconsin. So we'll keep an eye on the seat deposit. And then I think the big thing is that we will make sure that everybody who wants to apply for fall 2020 has that chance to do so. If that means that we keep our application open a little bit longer and we wait for those LSAT scores to flow in, we will make sure that everybody gets a chance to apply this year.
Thank you, Rebecca. And we really appreciate the way that the schools are working with LSAC on those deadlines, because and I think for candidates, please know that all of our interests are aligned here. Everyone wants you to apply for fall and be admitted for fall if that's your goal. If your goal is to be admitted later, we want to serve you there too. So as we see what's necessary around how we can administer the LSAT in this environment, we are staying nimble and with our schools so that we can offer a variety of options and make sure that that timeline stays intact. So Rebecca, we appreciate the flexibility that all of you are showing. Tracy, let me turn to you and get your perspective from out in California. I'm sorry that like Seattle, where I am, that's been a particularly hard hit area. So how are things going there?
Overall, I think they're going pretty well. I think everyone's adjusting to all the changes. Similar to Dean Scheller and Dean Burke, we basically are making the transition to doing everything virtually. And so one thing to note is that for many of us, we've all been reviewing files online for many, many years. And so that part has probably been the easiest part of this transition. And so our faculty reviewers and other reviewers are all trained to do that already. So at George, we're already in that space. But the other things are that, similar to my colleagues, we basically are doing everything we can to kind of replicate the experience as Dean Scheller pointed out. So for example, our career development team, our financial aid team, they're all available to do Zoom meetings, either in small groups or one-on-one. They will all participate in our virtual admitted student day, et cetera. The admissions office is trying to do things like hold virtual office hours. We're trying to be as responsive as we can to email and phone calls and things of that nature, setting up appointments, because that works for most people. And I think the only other thing I would note that's not unique, but I think that many of our colleagues, as Kelly pointed out, we've basically been collaborating and sharing ideas. And I think that's probably been the best part of this crisis, is that I've seen the community, the law school community, the legal education community really come together in a way that I'm proud of, but also is just reflective of who we've always been. And so I want to encourage all the candidates out there to be mindful that we are all in need of offering one another a little bit of grace as we go through this transition. But I do think that there's going to be a place for everyone, and that LSAC is working really hard to figure this out. for all of us, including the law schools. And so we just ask for a little bit of patience as we kind of navigate this new normal for a couple more weeks, it looks like. And I think that, being nimble and being flexible and using your time well in terms of doing your research and your homework, and really being thoughtful about the number of schools that are actually offering seats still for 2020 is going to be to your advantage.
That's great, Tracy. Thank you. And that nimbleness is so critical right now because, none of us really knows what the states are doing in terms of these restrictions on gatherings or travel. So we all want to stay nimble, and we're certainly doing that. I know in some ways our candidates would really like us to say right now exactly what's going to happen, but we want to keep the option for offering the test in as many ways as we can. Whether it's in person or remotely, we're working on right now getting that option set up in case that's the preference. So really appreciate your help in staying nimble, and we'll keep working with you on that. Dean Jenkins, talk to us a little bit about Minnesota and how things are going there and what you're seeing.
Sure. Well, like so many others, we're thriving through these really turbulent and difficult times. Certainly, we've moved to all remote work, and as others had said, our admissions process is continuing. And since so much of that was online anyway, the technology really allowed us to pretty smoothly continue the process there. And like so many others, what's changed, and particularly at this time of the year, I think part of it is also understanding where we are in the cycle. That for us, we're at the point where we're doing a lot of communication with our admitted students. Not to say that we're done admitting, but certainly that's a much larger focus this time of year. So we had to, for example, move our campus preview weekend into a virtual weekend. And like many others, we've had online classes and forums and panels so that students can really get to know our law school and get to know our terrific faculty, staff, and students. We've also been arranging private virtual visits as well, if need be, and really trying to ultimately connect students to the resources that they need to get the information that they need in a timely fashion. And I think, the one thing about everyone experiencing this is everyone understands. And I think that people are really being creative and flexible and generous of spirit and generous of time.
That's so good to know. And I want to come back in a minute to your point about the faculty and students in your school moving to remote instruction. We'll talk about that in a minute, because that's another issue that I'm sure will interest people getting ready to start their education next fall. And so I'll be curious to hear more about that. Before we go there, Jorge, I want to get you into this conversation and about what you're seeing from your vantage point. And I also want to invite you to please, in addition, just share anything that you'd like to, given that your leadership role there includes diversity at your law school, and just if there are anything in particular that you're noting that we should all be making sure we're paying special attention to around equity concerns, because obviously that's a key issue for LSAC and every law school. And so invite your comments on how things are going from your perspective.
I'm in San Diego, and not being able to showcase my campus has really been tough, right? Because that is one of the elements of our program that is very attractive to candidates. I think it has opened up opportunities that makes us think outside of the box, where in the past, a percentage of people had the means to go and visit prior to making a decision. And I think this unfortunate event has created an opportunity for us to develop a method of showcasing our program in our location for people who aren't able to travel across the country and go to one of the admitted student events. With regard to diversity, your diversity question, I think that, I think that there there are some correlations between socioeconomic statuses and especially students who come from underrepresented backgrounds. And one needs to be aware that this has just become another obstacle that some of our students have to overcome. And, you know, in the admissions process, that has to be recognized somehow. You know, I've gotten many questions about, you know, grading. You know, the people are going to finish off their school year in undergrad with pass or fail grades, and their inability to improve their GPA. There are people who have been working through undergrad, and all of a sudden they have been laid off because of the you know, the shutdowns of businesses. And I think that our colleagues, you know, our community, admissions community, is aware of that, and as best as we can. And I, you know, to tell you the truth, I really don't know how that will happen, but I think that being aware that this is going to be an additional obstacle will allow us to adjust our admissions process to accommodate this. You know, diversity in a class is vital. It's important. That's how you learn. Being exposed to points of view that you may not necessarily be familiar with, and we must make sure that that representation is in our entering class.
Thank you, Jorge, and thanks for all the leadership you've provided on that front for so long. And might be a good time for me to remind candidates that the values of equity and inclusion are so critical to all of us in legal education. And for that reason, we have the free Khan Academy LSAT preparation site. And that's just a good place to start. It's a good place to stay fresh while you're waiting to see, you know, when you can get in to take the test. We know you've worked hard to prepare for it, and it's you know, 99% of students admitted have an LSAT score, so we know that's what you want to do. And so that's an awesome opportunity. We also have the new Law Hub opportunity at lsac.org that students can use also. And I further want to remind candidates that, you know, for years we've administered a fee waiver program that tries to help those who need access and have financial constraint. And some of you may be experiencing new financial constraint in this environment. So please reach out to LSAC, whether about the fee waiver program. We also many times have been able to help candidates with access to even equipment if you're finding yourself without the ability to have access to a computer. So we're there to help you, and with our schools together, we'll make sure that that we're trying to be responsive wherever you are and whatever it is you need. Let me come back, panel, if I could, to these points about how much things have changed in the law schools and how they're delivering their curriculum, and then also the grading. You know, there's been a big move to more pass-fail or credit, no credit, a move to online instruction. And so I'd like to again ask each of you to share a little bit of your own perception and reflection about what that means and what that how candidates should be thinking about that. I'm sure they're all wondering, you know, how are you going to look at my transcript when now instead of all those A's, I might have some passes on there or what have you. So please let me invite that. And Rebecca, let me begin with you this time.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that can be disheartening if you've been working all semester long and now your grade that may have been projected to be an A might just be a P on that transcript. But I would tell these applicants, don't worry. We will know that forevermore, the spring of 2020, and hopefully only the spring of 2020, was an unusual one. The good thing is we still have 7 other semesters, presumably, to rely upon to make our decisions. And that's going to help us much more than just this single semester. I would also let students know that we might be looking a little bit more closely at the letters of recommendation. And so that's another area where they can really shine in their application materials. Particularly if they get a letter of recommendation coming from a professor they had during this very challenging semester. That can really be a good kind of I don't want to say substitute, but a good way for us to, again, have greater context and understanding for how a student did in that particular semester. But I think, we're all in this together. We know that, again, spring 2020 is just an unusual one, and hang in there. We'll be understanding of that as we review transcripts.
That's great. And I think we should probably print up some t-shirts that, we survived this together. And I do want, it's literally, and for many people, that's the question. So thank you for those comments, Rebecca. Gary, let me come back to you for this. As Dean, you've had to preside over that transition in your school. How's it going?
Well, I think it's actually going really well, all things considered. When you think about changing to online instruction mid-semester with virtually no notice, while at the same time the entire staff is moving to remote work as well, it is an enormous undertaking. But really, I found that our faculty and our students are so resilient, are so committed to each other and to legal education and making sure that our students get a first-rate education, that they are rising to the challenge in ways that are really creative and exciting. Of course, it's not the same as what we had planned for and had hoped for, but there's a lot of creativity and ingenuity, and I'm really proud of our entire community for doing that. Of course, we've been using Zoom. So this product here for many of our classes that are synchronous, but we have individual faculty who are doing other things as well. We've been very flexible, very creative. Some are incorporating podcasts, and some are doing more hands-on experiential work during this time in communication with students. So, I forgot what the phrase is. Crisis is the mother of all invention, I think, and I think that's a little bit of what we're seeing. And I think it's also relevant for students because, our students are struggling with the same thing. So you mentioned pass-fail, Kelly, and what's that going to look like on the transcript? Well, our faculty has made the decision to go to pass-fail grading for our law students for this semester. So we understand the impact. I believe me, no one is going to forget this semester. So I know that when the admissions team and our faculty are reviewing transcripts, they're going to understand. They're going to remember. And what we do, like so many other law schools, is holistic admissions. So we're really looking at the entire file of the candidate, and that includes a whole range of things, not any one semester. There's never one magic semester that makes a difference. We're really trying to get an entire picture of a student, what he or she has accomplished, what they hope to do in the future, and how our law school may fit in and impact them and their lives. And we're really trying to find students who are the best match, and we're really taking a holistic approach, and that's not going to change. And this is just part of that. And I think, as Dean Scheller mentioned, letters of recommendation and other things, there are still papers to write and relationships with faculty and other things. And I think in hindsight, there may be a lot of learnings that come out of it, and stories and new lessons. So I think that, as hard as it is and as challenging as it is, it's all those things. I think that in the big picture, for our students as well as prospective students, they can still find a way to achieve their dreams.
Yeah, that's so good, Gary. And I'm seeing a lot of chat and questions flashing across that are about whether the law schools welcome different kinds of students, whether older students, students with disabilities, students from all walks of life and different disciplines. And I know from working with all of you that you sure do. We really open up our arms widely, and we really want those who have a passion for law and justice to pursue it. So I'm so grateful for all of you for having that kind of approach. And all of you who are viewing can be sure that it is you in all of your uniqueness that our schools are looking for, and that they really do that holistic review. And we really welcome your passion, because that's what matters. Dean Burke, I want to turn to you. You've been presiding also over this transition at Oregon. So thoughts on the changes in grading or curriculum delivery that you'd like to share?
Our faculty too have decided to go with pass-fail for this spring semester. And, some people are calling it the P-star semester, right? There'll be an asterisk on everyone's transcript about, what this semester is in case anyone forgets. And I think that, looking at this, the people on the webinar, the candidates, prospective candidates, there are those that are applying this year, and there are those who perhaps are applying next year. And so I wanted to follow up on Rebecca's point about how disheartening it may be if thinking, the light finally came on this year, right? And now my grades are improving, or maybe some life circumstance has changed and my grades are improving, and we won't be able to see that. And I want to point out that I think it's the addendum, right? There are opportunities for you to sort of explain what's happening in your own personal situation. And again, the letters of recommendation are another opportunity for your faculty, your professors to weigh in on the situation. And as Dean Jenkins said, we are experiencing the same things. Our students are having the same struggles that many of the prospective candidates are having. We're thinking about how everyone isn't going to learn the same in this remote environment, even. So that we're going to make accommodations for students, even if they didn't have accommodations before, right? That we have to think about, is everyone adjusting to this P-star semester, as we're calling it. So I think that everyone is really pulling together and being understanding and compassionate, as Dean Simmons suggested that we all need to be this semester. And my favorite thing that one of my associate deans has been saying to faculty is, each one teach one. So I've really been amazed at the way in which we've been able to move our instruction to remote delivery. And we had the benefit of having a week of remote delivery, and now we're on spring. And so everyone can kind of breathe and think about, how can I do this even better next week? And so I'm really excited about the creativity that's going to show up in all of our virtual classrooms starting on Monday.
That's great. I'm so glad to hear it. You know what? Now that I'm at LSAC, I've been teaching law and leadership at Villanova, which has been a great fun to teach those 3 L's. And I kept thinking I should learn how to teach on Zoom. Well, no time like the present. I had to. So, but it is a great, it actually opens up opportunities. The class has been able to do some interesting things outside of class. And I think everywhere we're finding the ingenuity in this moment. Tracy, I want to open this up to you. Tracy, you've been such a great leader for us in helping talk with not only candidates, but a lot of pre-law advisors, and just really being such a wonderful resource for those who are pursuing legal education. How do you think this environment with the changes in curriculum and grading is impacting candidates, and what are your suggestions?
So my initial thoughts are that it's causing a lot of anxiety, which I totally understand. And I think that I would encourage the candidates to just be thoughtful about how they're pulling together their application. I think that Dean Burke is right in terms of thinking through the 2020 candidates versus the 2021, 2022 candidates. I think for the 2020 candidates, you should be in touch with the law schools that you're applying to and or still are interested in applying, and seek out information about what they're looking for. Many of us, as I think Dean Jenkins pointed out, are aware of what's going on with many of your universities and institutions. And so we're gonna be hypersensitive to what's going on with the pass, no pass, and how that's impacting you, being thoughtful about the fact that financially many students are gonna be taking a hit. And so for those that were planning on saving for law school and things like that, who cannot work, we have to be thoughtful about that in terms of scholarships and things of that nature. And so I think the biggest thing for me would be to encourage you to, take a step back, take a moment and kind of think through what your strategy and plan is. For all of us, I think we're all in constant communications. You have 2 deans and 3 assistant deans here who are generally part of a management team or some kind of senior leadership team. And we're in constant communications about what our summer is going to look like and what do we need to do, if anything, if these stay-at-home orders are still in place beyond May, June, July. And so we are planning, thinking ahead, strategizing about what it would look like to introduce our 2020 entering classes to law school virtually if we have to. We don't want to do that, as Dean Garcia pointed out. The highlight for all of us is actually having you all on our campuses, but we are strategizing and planning and thinking. And I think that for all of you, we want you to ask questions. We want you to basically take this time and kind of not be stressed, because stress kind of opens you up to being ill. And so we don't want that, but we do want you to be thoughtful about the fact that we are being thoughtful. We are collaborating with our state bar associations, with our local, law firms and LSAC specifically, to think through these challenges in this crisis. And so, we understand, we're empathetic. I think I keep looking at I keep turning because my computer screen's over here, and I keep seeing the chat, and I know you all have tons of questions about whether law schools are going to extend their seat deposit deadlines, whether they're going to take later LSAT administrations and things of that nature. And I think those are really school-specific questions. And I know my colleagues around the country are, in a position to answer those questions for their specific law schools, and LSAC will provide, updated information as frequently and regularly as they can. And so reach out to us, ask questions, but, keep your eyes on the prize, basically. Like, if you want to go to law school in 2020, we're here for you, and we're here to help you kind of work around any challenges that you're facing.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And I want to just repeat a couple things, because I see more, as people join on, more questions flashing up. And that is that, we have let the candidates know that we'll, by April 10th at the very latest, let them know what's happening with the April administration. And what we're doing is keeping an eye on what all the cities and states are doing, so that if there are places where we can administer, we will. And obviously under the laws that are there about how many people can gather and at what kind of safe distance. But I also want to make sure candidates know that if for some reason that can't go forward, and I understand that in many areas you're in, it looks hard that it could, given the restrictions you're seeing, that we are also going to roll out an online take-it-home opportunity for you, so that we can then work with our schools on deadline and make sure that you're continuing and able to do that. And it's always our priority to make sure that we do that right, that it's done well, it's secure, so you can trust it, candidates, so that our schools trust it, because it is what our schools expect of us and that we all expect of one another. So, but you will be able to have that option. And we also want to make sure you know that that's not the only option. If we need to move an administration into May, we'll do that. If we need to add administrations in the summer and fall, we'll do that. And if we need to do them in more places and in different formats, we'll do that. So I just want to make sure that candidates know that please stay in touch with us at lsac.org for those updates. And we will get those out to you as soon as it's prudent for us to do so, so that we're not jumping in too quickly, but we're also getting you the information that you need. And as Tracy noted, your schools are the ones to stay in touch with too. The admission community in the United States and Canada and around the world have incredible talent within their offices to help guide you through this. So be in touch with them. They're caring, they're there, everyone's operating through phone and remote and eager to help you. And finally, you know that we also opened up the opportunity for anyone who may have canceled a score that was registered for March or April to resurrect that, so that if you see it and now you wish you had kept it, you can do it. And so we're trying to think of everything we can to make sure that that you all have the support you need, and we will keep you closely briefed, and we will keep close in touch with our law schools, because we are a healthy ecosystem with them, and you can be sure that we're always talking to one another and able to make sure that we take care of candidates. As I said, all of our interests are aligned on this. We want those of you who want to apply for fall 2020, you'll be in good shape. For those of you who are interested in the future, we want you to stay the course. And with that, I want to turn to Jorge and ask for some advice on, for those people who are thinking about this, not so much for fall, because I think we've talked a lot about how we'll make sure those students are in good shape, but how should someone thinking about applying to law school further down the road be thinking about the changes that are happening and what impact, if any, that will have on them, and how can they best position themselves for success?
Well, I mean, I think that clearly we don't know what this virus is going to do, right? So the hope is that it'll fade, and the hope is that some type of vaccine is developed. But I think that anyone thinking of starting in 2021 has to at least be aware that there's a possibility that either on the first term or at one term, things can go to online teaching. And I think that most faculty are adjusting for those. Most law programs are adjusting for these types of changes. This has woken up a lot of us. And we will develop the needed processes to make sure that legal education continues to be delivered in in the right way. Clearly everybody wants people to be on campus, and there's another element that is added when you are there with other people, but one doesn't know. One doesn't know. So I think that in addition to the usual stresses that go on with just the application process, having that in the back of your mind is important. So yeah, I mean, clearly that this is, that the hope is that this will be, this will pass and we will come out stronger.
Good. I think so. And certainly we all hope that for all of us and everyone. And I am pulling from questions now that are coming in from the audience. And I do want to let the audience know that if we don't on the air answer your question, that staff at LSAC are endeavoring to answer all the questions that are sent in. So if you haven't seen an answer yet, or if you don't get one during the live show, they are going to be responding to those and trying to answer all the questions that have come in. And I do want to let viewers know too that we have recorded this in case you know people who may want to see it later. That will be available at lsac.org as well for your review. So I want to turn to Rebecca, and Rebecca, some of the questions coming in are things like, how will this affect a wait list if I'm on a wait list, or will this affect the fall deadlines at all, or how should I think about scholarships if I'm not applying for this fall but next fall? So any of your reflections just on advice to candidates who are thinking about how the crisis we're in impacts their approach and their prospects and situation?
So I think first, probably addressing the wait list. I do think, being honest, this is going to probably delay the waitlist process a little bit, but I would really encourage applicants who are currently on waitlists to really, as Dean Simmons said before, to just be patient with this process. We definitely will be getting there, and we will finish out these cycles. I anticipate that there could be quite a bit of movement. We might have some people who defer for a year, across all law schools, who might just sit it out for another year, and that would allow us to admit off of our wait lists more robustly than perhaps in the past. I think for people thinking about a future year, particularly as it relates to scholarships, law schools really do look closely at their budgets. And so I would anticipate that law schools will still have substantial scholarship assistance ready for fall 2021 and beyond, so that we're not going to spend all of our money right now. We know that we've got a plan for future classes that are coming in here. So while this is currently a bit of a bumpy cycle, I think students should feel pretty confident that if they do wait until next year, law schools will still be admitting and offering scholarship awards just as they have in the past. So whether it's this year or next, they can still, expect a similar experience, a better one.
Good, good. That's very helpful. And I know some of the questions coming in are, wondering if the American Bar Association of Law Schools will waive the LSAT, and the answer is no, that we're all expecting that this process will be able to be completed as everyone needs. And so we want to maintain those same approaches that have worked so well for legal education. So I think everyone understanding, again, to work closely with the schools, Rebecca, like you say, and that they'll be in good hands. Gary, let me come back to you for a moment on this. And, you've not only as dean, but, as a faculty member and in other ways, you've worked closely with people thinking about coming to law school. What's some other advice you have during this time for some of those questions that the candidates rightly have?
Sure. Well, my advice is really to stay the course. I think that, you want to keep moving forward. I think that, to me, if anything, this is reminding us that we need great lawyers now more than ever. We have faculty and students who are working on some of the very issues that are raised by this crisis, and some that continue ongoing, or other things. People who are, I know, working, for example, on immigration and representing immigrants who are in detention, and trying to represent those clients. Some of our health law faculty are deeply involved in some of the issues here. And so it's just amazing that this is just another example that there isn't an issue that's important to society that doesn't have a legal dimension. Everything that's important to our society has a legal dimension, and this one is no different. And it really, I think, just proves as another reminder that the value of lawyer leaders is still essential in our society, and this time more so maybe than others. And so if this is something that you have a passion for, if this is something that you can see yourself doing and making a difference, law schools are going to be here. Law schools are going to want to hear from you and get to know you, and help you. And there are so many great law schools across the country that everyone who wants a high quality legal education can get one.
That's great. I appreciate that. And Dean Burke, let me ask for your reflections on that as well. And as I turn to you, I do want to let our viewers know that several people have asked, if I'm nervous about April, do I have to stay registered for April? And the answer is no. If it's not working for you right now, we're going to let you move to any test that you want to, and let that and handle that for you without a fee for moving your registration. So again, in your own circumstance, just reach out to our organization or to your admission dean, and we'll make sure that you're taken care of. Dean Burke.
For those who are thinking about applying even still this next year, I think my primary advice is to continue preparing. Whatever it is you were doing to start this journey, you should keep doing it. So if you were studying for the LSAT, keep studying, right? Keep preparing. Use those resources, the Khan Academy, the other resources that LSAC has now made available online. Keep going in that direction, because we are ready and waiting for you. And as Dean Jenkins said, society is ready and waiting for you. I was reading last night about liability for companies to make new ventilators, right? Those questions, liability related to new vaccines, all of those issues. We need more lawyers. How to even go about issuing stay-at-home orders, right? That's new ground for every state government, every local government to have to do those things. So the need for lawyers in every facet of human life has never been greater. So I want to encourage people to keep progressing along the path wherever you are. And again, if you've already applied or you're thinking about where to apply still yet, to communicate with those law schools. Everyone is here to help you. Everyone wants you to be successful in this journey. And so don't hesitate, and I say this with the admissions deans here, that don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we do want to help you be successful.
Very good. Thank you all so much. And I know we're about 10 minutes from the close of the hour. So what I'd like to do is give each of you a chance for any kind of closing remarks that you may want to make. And then I'll make some closing remarks at the end, because I see some questions that we have answered that are coming up again. So I just want to make sure that people have heard the responses to those. But I think that, as we approach this, there really are candidates that are in 3 different places. One group are already applied and now on wait lists or thinking about where to go. A second group are people who still want to apply for fall. And that's the group that I think we've focused a lot on today, and assuring you that you will have various options to take the LSAT, whether in the field or from home. And please continue your journey. We're all here to serve you. And then the same for those of you who are looking beyond fall 2020 to 2021 or a future year, that we also will continue this the same approach to help you make your own journey. So let me, Jorge, ask you for any closing remarks, and then I'll ask each of you for that before I wrap it up for this hour. And let viewers know that we will try and do this again from time to time to keep you updated as we all go through this together. Jorge.
I'd like to say that this, we understand that this is a difficult time, right? It's an added stressor to the whole application process. And, you have to, as an applicant, trust the process. I saw a lot of questions about, how are we going to treat grades and scores and lack thereof. We have done this for a long time, and we're all in communication. I personally know Dean Simmons and Dean Scheller, and we ask each other opinions or best practices. And if this is something that you have dreamt of all your life, to get a legal education, don't let this stop you. I did a poll of the West Coast schools, because that's in my region, of who was still admitting, and with the exception of one where they were already full, everybody else is still in the process of admitting. So I would encourage you to continue to apply. I know that there's thousands of questions that I've seen flash on my screen. I would encourage you to reach out to the schools that you're interested in and post those questions. I would be more than happy to answer as many as I can. But definitely don't let this discourage you. This is still, we'll get through this together.
Thank you, Jorge. Tracy?
Hi. So I think the one thing to remember is that, we're going to be in the history books. This time is like no other. And as Dean Burke pointed out, there are tons of things that are being decided and being done that have never been done before. And so we all have this shared collective experience. And so don't forget that. I also think that on a more practical side, for those that are applying for 2020, look to social media. Many of the law schools are using social media a little differently now to kind of highlight, our alumni and our students and what our faculty are doing in terms of kind of these virtual experiences and virtual classroom. Coursework and things like that. I also think that, use the time that you would have normally kind of been going out with friends or kind of just hanging out or actually doing other fun things. Use that time wisely. Now this time to do scholarship research. There are tons of funds out there. Dean Garcia and I talk about this all the time. There are a lot of scholarships out there that people don't apply for. We have a lot of time in your hands right now. So you should be applying for all that free money out there. particularly those of you that are first generation and or are, socioeconomically, disadvantaged. And so that's my biggest concern, is that I hope that folks who feel like they're underrepresented in the legal profession don't shy away because of their concerns about money and things like that. As Dean Scheller pointed out, and I think maybe Dean Burke at some point, many of us are looking ahead and planning ahead and trying to strategize about how to make this work for you. And so I would encourage you, as all my colleagues did today, to kind of continue on that path, stay focused, and just know that there are tons of resources out there to kind of help you get to law school this fall. And so we are being flexible and adaptable. And I think that the last thing I'll say is that if one of your dream schools has already closed their deadline and maybe they're full, that doesn't mean that there's not another great school out there that's going to be a great fit for you. The big decision for all of you is going to be, do you want to go to a certain law school, or do you want to be a lawyer, advocate, lobbyist, politician, etc.? If you really just want to go to law school and go out there and do the great work for the people, there's a law school out there for you. And best of luck to everybody.
Thank you, Tracy, so much. Gary Jenkins, I know you've got to step away in a minute, so let me ask you for any closing comments, and thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, Kelly. I guess what I want to say is that, look, law schools are on your side. We are not out to get candidates. We're about inviting candidates in. We want to invite you into 3 years of rigorous study. We want you to be part of our community. We want you to be part of our profession. So we are going to understand. We want to, we're all going through this together. As someone else said earlier, this is not a semester that any of us are going to forget anytime soon. So I think that it's something that, instead of, as Dean Simmons was talking about, maybe instead of spending time being anxious and worried, you might be better off using the time more productively. And there are lots of opportunities to either continue your work in preparation or getting to know schools. I think, we're all still working remotely, so we're still telling our stories and doing that in exciting ways, and perhaps in ways that we weren't even doing before. And so I think that there are still opportunities to continue to move forward. And that's what we're focused on, and I think that's what students should be focused on.
Absolutely. And I think some of the people in this chat room today are going to be the ones that we're all counting on to make our world a better place. So thank you again. Dean Burke?
I think the only thing that I might add is to just remember, we're still open for business. We virtually open, and we are here for you. And I know that, adjusting to this life is not easy for anyone, and everyone has different circumstances. Some of you may feel like you're working 16-hour days now or 18-hour days, when that wasn't the case before. So I urge everyone to try to take care of yourselves and your loved ones, to be compassionate with others, but also compassionate with yourself. And know that, again, that we are here to help you in any way that we can. And so you shouldn't hesitate to reach out to us. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, personally, I found for myself during this period, when I do start to feel a little anxious, to get outside has been really helpful for me. And so to just take a beat, and it doesn't mean that you have to be a marathoner or anything like that, just to walk around the block, I've found has really helpful to sort of center and calm myself, and then I can come back and get to work. And when you do come back and get to work, we'll be here ready to meet you.
That's awesome. Thank you. And Rebecca, thanks for all that you do. I'll ask for your closing thought on this too before I wrap it up.
Sure. I think all of my colleagues and fellow panelists said it well. So not much to add other than law schools have always been centers for change and innovation. And this is no better example than what we can accomplish in law schools. And a quick thank you to you, Kelly, and LSAC. We are all grateful, both schools and candidates, that we've got a great partner in LSAC in providing us with resources and the gold standard test to help us get through this. So thank you.
Well, it's a real pleasure, and I want to note in closing that I really do thank each of you. I know you're so busy, and to take the time to be with me and LSAC and the candidates today to share our information so we can all move through this well together. It's just terrific and a great testament to your devotion to legal ed and the candidates. So I thank each of you panelists for being with us, and virtual big claps for you for doing that. And then finally, I want to say to our viewers that I really appreciate you being with us. And I know, as LSAC's president, that you're counting on us. You know, 99% of students that are admitted and matriculated law schools have an LSAT score because that's the only valid and reliable test, and it's designed to match with the skills that the law schools want you to be able to have to succeed, whether you're in that curriculum virtually or you're in their classrooms there physically. So I want you to know that I know you're counting on us, and I will make sure that we're doing everything we can to be creative and flexible and supportive of you. We will proceed by developing many alternative ways for you to take the LSAT so that you can stay on your timeline. And our schools are working with us on that. And so whether we're doing small groups in the field with digital or small groups in the field with paper and pencil, or perhaps someday we can dream bigger groups again, or whether we're developing a very secure remote option. And security we know is important because you're counting on the legitimacy candidates, we know that. And so we will roll those things out and keep in very close touch with you. As noted before, we will have more information at least by April 10, if not before, and we'll keep you very closely posted. In the meanwhile, our office is open, our phone lines are open, and we're there to help each candidate individually. And I want to say a special word today to our candidates who need accommodations, because we are very committed to you, and we will work with you. We understand this environment may raise even additional issues that you're concerned about, and we understand that. We'll be there for you. So I want to thank everyone again. We'll answer as many questions as we can that have come in online, so that and then we'll post this for 5 days so that if you have friends that didn't get to tune in today, they can see it. And finally, we'll make sure to do this again soon so that as other questions come up and as we all navigate what is a very fluid and difficult situation across the world, we can all stay nimble and responsive. And if there's one thing I've learned about lawyers, they are leaders. And in times like this, that's when we must lead. We must stay together, stand strong for law and justice, and you can count on all of us to do that with you. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. Please keep well and in touch.